gentlemen, welcome to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. For information on any live comedy pop-up shows, please go to our website, comedypopupla.com. And don't forget to please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. Every 5-star review means a lot to us. All right, let's start the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast. I am your fill-in host for today, Paul Antonio. Ron G is out making television, so I will be here whenever they need me. But it's great to be here. I have two amazing guests on this episode. I'm so excited. Let me just jump into it. I'll introduce you guys. So for the very first time in Comedy Pop-Up Podcast history, I get to interview somebody who's younger than me.
Oh, God,
and I'm so excited. But I mean, you've seen her on Last Comic Standing, Last Call with Carson Daly, MTV. She's a producer for Query, which is Cameron Esposito's podcast. And she also went to Harvard, which we're going to get into all that. Please welcome Sierra Katow to the podcast.
Yay. Thank you.
Applause, applause, applause. We'll add it in post.
Okay.
All right. And for our next guest, I did have an intro written out until I looked up online, and this guest was on America's Got Talent, and somebody took it upon themselves to write a bio for him on the America's Got Talent wiki page. So I'm going to read it for now. So Alex Hooper was sculpted in Baltimore, Maryland. As a troubled weirdo, he tried on many hats before realizing only comedy could tame his hair. On stage, he is known for his clever writing, fearless style, rampant energy, and sickeningly positive attitude. He has appeared on Comedy Central Roast Battle, Fox's New Girl, TV Line Nickelodeon, and most importantly, The Bad Girls Club. His 2018 album, Hugs, Drugs, Pugs, hit #1 on Amazon and #3 on iTunes best-selling comedy records. Also in 2018, his Pug Yoga calendar was featured on The Ellen Show. Please welcome to the show, Alex Hooper.
Yay. And I'm also much younger than Paul as well, so I would like to just throw that there. That actually is my real bio. That came directly.
Oh, is it really?
That came directly from my website.
Okay, good.
No, because I was like, Paul said he's like, there's a bio on this Wikipedia page. I was like, I don't know. He's like, have you read it? I was like, no. That's
like,
literally just stripped from my website.
Okay, perfect. It's great.
It goes to show if I checked your website, but that's an amazing bio. I got to give it to you.
Thank you very much.
That's so
Big fan.
hilarious.
I like the sculpted.
Yeah, you know,
That was a good choice.
Sculpted.
use that thesaurus every once in a while, kids. Wow.
That's my favorite dinosaur. All right. So, I mean, I'm trying to find common ground. Normally with these shows, they're booked kind of together, but today was a little bit like, well, who's available? And you guys were available.
Yay!
Yay,
Our
for
first
being
choice.
available.
Yeah.
Nobody wants us.
Completely kidding. But what's awesome is you guys have been both on with America's Got Talent, Last Comic Standing.
Yeah.
You guys were both on competition shows. And not only that, even bigger than like a live television performance, you did it in front of judges.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. Like, I don't know what your experience was. I mean, mine, because I was doing something so specific and unique. I wasn't really trying to win anyone's approval in there, but it must have been so different, like, for you to have to go in there, like, because comedy is obviously so subjective that you go in there and you're like, hey, so I know we're all really good, but here's why I want to stand out to you a little better.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, I guess yeah, because I know AGT, since it's everything, like you're also competing against like children.
Yeah.
Like, how can you do that? You know what I mean? But so much, yeah, that's awesome. I feel like it's hard just to get on there as a comic, period. You know?
Yeah.
Obviously, Last Comic Standing was like 100. I did this most recent season. They pick 100 comics, so everybody's a comedian. So you kind of like have to go out there and just do your jokes. And then, I mean, in my case, I was really like just happy to be there. I was young and, you know, still in college, and they were all like, well, it's cool that you have this like other thing going on because that's the way you can at least bring something else to the table. But everybody's doing 3 minutes, you know what I mean? Like, for me, that was fine. But for other people who had been doing like hours headlining forever and were like, what's this young kid doing here? I was like, I respect my elders, please. You know, it was very interesting. So I think like I had a bit of a lucky situation because of my place in life.
Was it easy
So, yeah.
was there solidarity backstage though? Like, because was everyone still, because obviously when you're in a green room,
Yeah, how was
it's
it?
so fun to be in a green room with other comics and
Yeah.
just, you know, you can just say whatever you want and everybody just kind of bullshits with each other. But in that format, when there's actually like money on the line and like more TV
Fair.
coming, like, did you find any resistance or was it still
I
pretty
see.
chill back
I mean,
there?
it was still chill. They did like bring the camera into the green room, quote unquote. So we had this green room that was like built on a stage. And so like, I think there was also a lot of like, look at me, if I can get extra television time. So, I mean, I don't know if it was very organic as a result, but I mean, yeah, people were really nice. And I like met a lot of people who I'd looked up to when I was there. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't like in the green room per se, but like at the hotel or like whatever else is going on. Right?
Was there anybody there that kind of like that you didn't have the best experience with, or try to be like alpha dog?
Oh, I see. Like
You could
people
say
trying
names.
to posture.
Yeah.
This
podcast doesn't have a
Burn bridges,
Yeah,
Sierra.
time to knock
Norm
it all
McDonald.
down. Yeah. No, I mean, I think everyone was like nervous in their own way, so nobody was really being super weird about it. If anything, they were being louder and funnier, but I don't think there was any like fights or anything. There's definitely like weird stuff with comics I look up to. I think it was kind of strange because a lot of them knew I wasn't at that level yet. Like I literally was coming in like, I was like 4 or 5 years in, but at least like lucky to be there, versus somebody who's like, I've been roughing it for like 20 years. Can you chill out right now? So I think I got those vibes a little bit, but I understand that,
But that show's good for that. I mean, Eliza won when she'd been doing stand up like three or 4 years.
Exactly.
Because,
like, you're not doing that much time. So
yeah, exactly. Like the thing is you could win Last Comic Standing with 12 minutes of material.
Shout out to Dat Fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, it can be a blessing or a curse, depending on how far you really take it and what you're able to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're not like, all right, we're gonna watch your hour and see how tight it is.
Yeah.
Check the callback ratio. Like they're not looking for that kind of substance.
Parts of the country.
How about Alex? Were there any kids backstage that tried to puff their chest out to you? Or?
I kind of there's always a bunch of kids back there, and the thing is, they're also all the dancers and singers and everything. Like they just do it at the top of their lungs, whereas comics we kind of like keep to ourselves. Like I'm not trying to put on a show back there or anything.
Right.
I'm just I've had my headphones on or I'm reading a book. I'm just kind of chilling out, and then there's always these dance teams that come in and they start like going against each other and like battling in the middle of the and I'm just like I don't have time for this. It was really interesting to be back there because I'm someone who, while I do love being in the spotlight and being on stage, I'm very reserved when it comes to like, who wants to get in the center of this thing and just show off in front of everybody. I'm not 14 anymore. I just don't care. And so I'm just like sitting back there, just, flipping my little tail and just like chilling out. And I didn't talk to a ton of people back there. I found one other guy who I had a lot of common ground with, who was doing this weird character thing. And he's mainly like a sketch and improv guy. And like, we kind of just joined forces. We're like, all right, can we just laugh at all these other weirdos and just make fun of them? And just like, and that was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard, it's a lot of parents and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, as someone who's never done anything like that before, I'm curious, like, how the process kind of starts. Like how you kind of get into there. So does it start out with like an application that you send in, or do you got to wait in line? Like
mine was very specific because they had wanted a roaster to come on. So they came to Roast Battle and they were like, oh, we're looking for roasters. And so they gave me Roast Battle gave them a few names, me being one of them. And they talked to me and they were like, we really want a roaster. And I was like, for America's Got Talent, why? And they were like, we just think it'd be great. I was like, you just watched this show, like Roast Battle at the Comedy Store, and you think this belongs on there? Yeah. And they were like, yeah, we think it could work. And so I showed them that character. I showed them me doing the character, like the unitard and the tail and everything. And I said, if this is going to work, I think this is the best way to make it work. And then, so I didn't have to wait in any lines or anything. I went immediately in for executive producers. They had me just make a tape of me roasting the judges. And I just went immediately in for EPs. And a few days later, they were like, yeah, we're going to do it.
Really?
I was shocked, and they were shocked. Honestly, the producer that called me was like, Alex, I can't even believe this right now. They want to see you immediately. Like, honestly, I was like, she was just in disbelief as I was, because I was kind of like a last minute, like I was the very last thing she showed them. They were like, do you have anything else? And she's like, well, there's this. And then she showed them and they were like, who is this person? Get him in here. But I never thought they would do something like that on that show. I think somebody was very mad at those judges.
That's what it seemed like, right?
You know, somebody at the top was just like, I'm really tired of these people.
Knock them down a few pegs.
Yeah, can somebody please come in here and just talk trash on them? And I mean, the experience as a whole was, I mean, it was brutal, to be honest with you. It was, you know, what you see in the clip is very flattering towards me, but having 3,000 people scream at you to get off a stage and not let you speak is really, really hard. I mean, it sits in you. It's like, I mean, it felt like I ate a really bad edible for like days afterwards. But then I was like, why do I still feel like this? Like, I'm not normal yet. There's so much negative energy in me and I'm not used to it. I'm positive and I'm happy and silly. And, you know, it took a while to like really break me out of that.
I know, they put you in front of the White Apollo, the White Apollo Theater.
Yeah, exactly.
But so do you think it was just a big thing? So by the way, if anybody has not seen this clip, go to YouTube, pause this, go to YouTube. The clip has 2.4 million views at the time of this recording. It's amazing. Do you think it was just kind of like a misunderstanding as like, oh, they didn't know you were playing a character? Like how many people thought that was really you?
You know, I think that's crazy because when you see what happens in the room, like if you ask anybody that was in that room, I died up there. Like I was annihilated by that room. But then when you watch it, because I was able to hold my own and just keep smiling, the fact that they are booing me just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
I mean, when I got home, my girlfriend was in the audience and I was like, what did that look like on your end? And she was like, any normal person's worst nightmare. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay. Thanks for not sugarcoating it. Yeah. It's good. But it's just like they were just so not ready for what I was about to do. And, you know, part of a roast is that the person does know they're going to be roasted. So me kind of like, you know, sidelining them and just coming out of nowhere. It's not, you know, the etiquette's not exactly there. But at the same time, I was like, I'm throwing such softballs at them that like, and they spend all season going, you're not good enough. Yeah, no, you think you can run in this business, blah, blah. They crush people's dreams all the time. Right. And that's the thing is I'm like, you're practically billionaires. Who cares what I say about you? Yeah. Like, go home and cry into a pillow filled with money, you know? Yeah,
pretty much. So how does it feel going about life knowing that Tyra Banks wants to kill you?
I mean, she's a terrifying woman.
Did she say anything to you after?
No, none of them did. Okay. None of them have said. Howie Mandel said something to me at the Comedy Store one night that was very kind and flattering, but I don't think the rest of them, maybe aside from Simon, will ever want to say anything to me again.
Yeah.
But
Howie seemed to take it hard though when you said your little, you know.
He did, and I was really confused because I was like, "Don't you get it, man? You were a weird comedian back in the day." Like, and I think though, you know, he was also playing a character on that show, being a family-friendly judge that kind of like, this is not what we're looking for. You can't just come in here and make fun of me. I'm supposed to help people, blah blah. But then he like tweeted at me a few times and talked to me in person and just was very, very kind and respectful about what I did. Yeah. And the show is as well. I mean, I just shot a package for them that's going to air as part of their finale. They brought back me and a few other acts that got basically booed off stage that were very memorable. And so now we're going to be involved in the finale. So, I mean, the fact is the show, like whatever happens they have respected me in the end and liked what I did enough to, you know, treat me like a professional, which I did not think they were going to do.
Yeah. Especially after those reactions, because those reactions were brutal.
They can do anything. A former producer told me, she's like, don't go on that show, Alex. They will find a way to fuck you over. They will do it. They do it to comedians all the time. They will take out any laughter. They'll put in cricket noises. Right, they can do anything they want. Yeah. They can do anything they want. Same. I mean, Last Comic Standing could too, but they're not trying to make you look bad because they're trying to bring up, at least from what I watched that season.
That one,
and, you know, they're trying to show the craft of being a comedian more so.
Right.
Did you feel that way?
Yeah, and they like told us that up front before too, because it was Wanda Sykes and Paige Hurwitz producing, and they like, well, Wanda definitely, like, both of them do stand up, but of course people know Wanda, and like they were specifically like, we're not trying to make you look bad, but most I guess previous seasons obviously didn't have that, and they had like people live in the mansion and stuff like.
Yeah.
Right? So it's definitely changed a lot. But I don't know if that makes for better television, right? Because it didn't get renewed or whatever. Like maybe some audiences at home want to see the ups and downs and everything. But
Yeah.
I know they like cut out comments of judges, that maybe were not as nice, which like they could have definitely left in. But I feel like with AGT too, like the whole, like even being like them seeking a roaster out. And like doing, and and then you were in that position, like that's on them. I feel like they would know that the tone of the show is so like we love children and like stories and things like that, and it is so like anti that in a way that's really cool actually, because you're like the only person who goes in with like that sort of thing, and so I feel like for people who are looking for something like that, like they've never been given that in AGT before.
Yeah, no,
But,
it's
so
definitely
that's really
it's
cool,
not
but-
for their main audience.
But yeah,
to
the fact that like
love.
I mean, I feel like just that genre, you're being set up for like a really difficult task.
Yeah.
Completely like
In my
a lot
mind,
harder,
that's
huh?
why I did it the way I did it, though, is because I was like, if I wear a tail and like speak in this silly voice and just like kind of act like regal and just arrogant, like I just think like people will understand that
to
it's a
know.
joke. They
Yeah,
have to,
yeah.
but like people still don't. I got so many hate messages, which like I love. Like I'm all
Okay, yeah,
like the
cool.
thing is, you learn because I got so many more positive ones of people going, "That was the best. That was so cool. I can't believe you went on the show and did that." But then there's this other side of people, mostly like these 14-year-old like super Christian kids that are just like, how dare you go on that? Tyra Banks never did anything to anyone.
Oh my
Or like parents are like, my son is bullied every day by people like you. And I'm just, I'm like, your son goes to school with people like me. Maybe this is a bigger issue.
Re-examine your enrollment. Wow, yeah, that's wild. But versus like, what about on Roast Battle? Like it's everybody signing up for that by clicking on play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
they're
a different
watching
roast
it.
battle's a whole different story because most of us are friends and we literally like we have this agreement of like, hey, this is all out of love. We
Right,
hug each other afterwards.
Yeah,
I wasn't able to go up and hug everyone after, be like, I'm sorry, Heidi Klum, I didn't mean it.
Getting a
Like,
hug, yeah.
Mel B, you're my favorite Spice Girl.
Does that make up for it? Yeah.
I had heard like with Last Comic Standing and that they were really tried to show more. They did take out comment stuff because after a few seasons, managers were like, I'm not going to put my client on that show because like they would go in there and they'd be like, and like they would, exactly. And so like people were going, there's no way I'm going to subject like my client, this person that I think has talent that I'm trying to bring up to a show that might eventually just bring them down instead. And so I had heard that this season, like, even though sometimes like Norm would like say things that were, it almost seemed like it's like, where's the Norm? Where's,
Oh yeah,
why
they
is
cut
he
out a
not,
lot of his stuff.
yeah, why is he not just shooting them down like he would?
Right.
Hey, it was great.
Yeah.
I liked it. It's something different.
Yeah, I know like Jesselnick tweeted kind of out about the fact they cut a lot of his jokes or his banter with Norm because they had a probably great dynamic. I didn't watch the whole thing, but like that they cut out in the thing maybe because it was a little mean or something. I don't know. I mean, I guess, but yeah, they were like, I think trying to make us look at, I don't know. I would have gone on no matter what, obviously. But
Sure.
like, I think there was, when I went up, I did my, 3.5 minutes. Norm like didn't like it that much. And he was just sort of like, well, this is like, you'd be maybe a good opener. And then I think he said more, but I kind of like wasn't listening at that point too, probably. And then I think they cut it out. Like, I think then they cut straight to like Roseanne and Keenan, who were like, but you're, that's great and blah, blah, blah. And so then I'm glad I didn't actually react to it afterward, because then they would have had to keep it in, because it'd be like, what is she reacting to, I guess? But I like was just like, I don't know.
At 4 or 5 years, I was like, you would be a great opener. I'd be like, thank you so much.
Right, yeah.
I am
I'd be
doing,
like, that was actually
wow,
very
not just a
positive.
host,
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
a guest set. I'm an opener already.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You would make an amazing open mic host. That's all I'm saying. Variety night?
Hey,
yes, let's
I'd
get it
take
done. That's so funny. Well, so let's circle back a little bit. Would you have done Last Comic Standing if they still had the house?
Oh, God. I mean, I think I still would have done it because, like, I had not done anything television related at that point.
It's hard to say no to
right?
TV
Yeah, how would
when you're
I-
early on in a career. Anything where they're just like, hey, do you want to come in and dump cereal over your head on a public
right.
train?
It's like,
you're like, yeah.
please. Yeah, like I think because I grew up like watching it, so there's a lot of that sentimentality. And I probably would have, even though that's like a terrifying concept to live in a freaking house with a bunch of people. But yeah,
it sounds like any normal comedy situation. Like,
Right,
like
fair
most
enough.
of my friends in
Roommates.
LA are like, I live with 12 people.
okay, yeah, fair.
Come
That's
live in this
true.
house. Special guest judge Louis C.K. You never know
Oh,
what's going to
God.
go down.
Fair. Yeah, that's where we draw the line. But yeah.
So how was the process of getting on Last Comic Standing for you?
Oh yeah, it was pretty interesting. Like I think I had like a video on the Laugh Factory channel at some point. So it was like, you know, I had been able to at least have stuff online, and I think they had seen that, and you know, they're always looking for different kinds of comics. So they had messaged me on Facebook, which was like in the other inbox.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
like I luckily happened to check that at some point, and then I was able to audition. They were just doing like showcase auditions out in LA. So I was still in school, but I came back out here for like winter break or whatever, and it happened to line up. So I auditioned at the Improv, and then like 2 weeks later they called me and were like, "Yay, we want you to do it." And I was like, "Okay, I guess so." But I had to leave school. So I like basically, you know, it was like in March, and luckily I only left for like 2 days or whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so it was actually like a lot. I think my process was quicker than some, because some people that had like semifinal or whatever, it was sort of like going from Boston, and then maybe they went to New York to do more, and then they got called in. And then they also filmed like a package thing because I was in school. So they're like, "Oh, well, Harvard, like, wow."
You have such a good story
So,
for
like, yeah,
it. You
I mean,
know,
they
that
like
really
that,
does
and
help.
It helps a ton. And like,
Yeah.
even though I didn't make it past the first like elimination, they had still played my background story thing, which like they totally didn't have to. So it was very like, I was, you know, hashtag blessed or whatever.
Which,
people
by the
say.
way, your set was one of my favorites, and I
well,
was like,
thanks.
it
No, I
was
mean,
so funny.
It was a lot of fun.
Did you see any bump? Like, did you get a bump after that? Like,
What does that mean? Just like like help, like
yeah, like
kind of
it
gives you a little more legitimacy.
kind of give you a little momentum going forward.
Yeah. I mean, like the weird thing. So I was still like a junior in college, and then shortly after, I don't think it was before Last Comic Standing aired, but I taped Last Call with Carson Daly back here too. So that was really cool. And then you know, it aired the following year. I still had a year to finish college, which I did, and like a lot of really great, you know, response. I think people love seeing. I don't know, fellow like Asian Americans, you know, we love to see each other on television because there's like not that much of us.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
love
like,
seeing
"Yay."
white people on television. It's my favorite thing.
We need to get more white people on
Exactly. I mean,
television.
Seriously.
You know the feeling, seeing a brother or a sister on.
Oh, but I totally,
yeah.
I totally
So
get that.
people
You know,
were-
you
yeah,
got
very
you got to
supportive.
root for your tribe.
Totally,
always.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening with Crazy Rich Asians right now. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
thrilled about that. So people responded super well, and then like, I guess, you know, and like other things came out of that didn't necessarily like, you know, manifest until later. But like, then when I moved out the following, like July or something, then it's like nice to have a credit. Like that's so helpful no matter what. And so I mean, it was great, and it's like cool also that I got to, you know, meet some comics there, and we kind of have that like camaraderie of like, oh yeah, we were there, and like in that weird green room that was built in like a stage.
Yeah. And not a lot of comics can say that they were one of the top 15 seniors graduating in 2016 from Harvard.
Oh yeah, that was it was called the most interesting thing. It was
Most
an
interesting
arbitrary
seniors.
list of us students who
That's
were
hilarious.
Every list is arbitrary, but aren't you so happy to be on it
Oh, yeah, I
anyway?
mean, thrilled.
Thrilled,
you know.
every time I'm
Tell
put
the
on some
parents.
list, I'm just like, oh yeah, what's this website that named me something?
Oh, I know.
A
It
top
really-
40, whatever. Like,
It's a fun time, but yeah, it also for me destroys the credibility of that website. I'm like, oops. Well, I guess nobody knows what they're talking about.
Attack Harvard like that. We enjoy it. Harvard, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know.
That's
no,
awesome. How was your time at Harvard? Now I know you did computer
cool.
science, correct?
I did. Yeah, nerd.
Do you still have a passion for that, or?
I do it on the side, you know. You gotta. I mean, I don't make any money from comedy, so I gotta make money somehow. So I do a lot of like freelance coding stuff for people here and there, and then studied it in college. But you know what was big at our school is like the Lampoon. So like I did a lot of that, and like did a lot of stand up and stand up club and stuff.
Were you part of the
So, like,
Lampoon? Like,
yeah.
oh, that's
so I was
amazing.
like very involved there, and that takes up a lot of time. So I think that's where like even though I majored in computer science, I maybe like didn't really major in computer science. You know what I mean? Like it just you go through the motions. But yeah, so that was really cool, and also just like it's like a fun way to meet other comedians, and so like a lot of friends who were in that and want to write. Most of them want to be writers, but like some want to do. It's all comedy, so I guess like maybe some want to perform or whatever. But it's nice to have that, people out here. So that when I come out here, it's not like I'm totally lost. Like there's some friends.
Was it still as competitive to get into the Lampoon as like it used to be?
Oh, I see. I think it is still. I mean, I guess it depends. I don't know how it used to be exactly, but I guess it's very competitive in the fact that like, there's this prestige behind like, ooh, like Conan O'Brien was in it and like these guys and ever the Simpsons and whatever.
Yeah, like every Simpsons writer pretty much ever was a Lampoon guy.
Right, yeah. So like that like prestige of it feels very desirable. So everybody wants to join. But I think also what's interesting now is I would say it's probably more common for people to like make it outside of like these institutions. You know what I mean? Like there's Twitter now. There's like people you can write things independently. So I feel like the appeal, it fluctuates depending on who you are and like what you want out of comedy. And like, if you just want to be a stand-up, I feel like just do stand-up, right?
Yeah.
But I think people who want to write for television, people who are like kind of interested in that history wanted to join the Lampoon, and so that's what we did.
Yeah. Did you feel like that being there, like in the Lampoon, was it really isolated from like the Boston comedy scene, or did you find it kind of integrated?
It was probably pretty isolated. Like I guess the Boston comedy scene I would get to see because of stand-up, but outside of but within the Lampoon itself, it was kind of insulated. It's like it's still students at the end of the day. Like we're all kids and just kind of like doing our homework, and then we're like doing this on the side. You know what I mean? So it wasn't at all. We weren't very much branching out other than like, the occasional like guest would come through or something like that. And oftentimes it'd be like people who were like coming through Boston, not necessarily like from Boston. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Now that's an interesting dynamic because not only is it a comedy club, like club is a group of people. I know it's hard to differentiate comedy group.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But not only that, but it's on a college campus.
Yeah.
So I wondered, did you ever get in trouble or anyone get in trouble for maybe saying something a little bit outrageous on?
Oh, interesting. Because of that atmosphere. Like I feel like I mean, yes, that still was a thing when I was on campus, but when I was there, I feel like it wasn't at the degree it is now as far as like the sort of, everybody's kind of policing language and things like that, which I understand. But, at the time, I think we were still insulated enough where like basically the Lampoon puts out a humor magazine and that's sort of its own thing. And it's, and not a ton of students read it, I think is probably what saves us. And so like there might be a lot of like controversial stuff in there, but it's kind of all very out there. It's not like current or topical or anything. Like it's all just like prose pieces about like random esoteric stuff. I don't know, it's kind of so separate that maybe we couldn't get in trouble. And then the fact that it's just like a group of friends, like there's not a lot of like performances for outside audiences or things like that. So it's a little bit harder to have that issue, but I think that's becoming way more relevant now, like especially like students who are students now. I'm sure there's a lot more, trying to figure out how to like change the tone so it's a little bit more okay. Because like, up till now, I don't think that was like a concern.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, being on Last Comic Stand, was there anybody that you were kind of around that kind of mentored you that you really like took a liking to, or maybe you're still in contact with them today?
I see. Like when I was on the show. I mean, like I met a lot of people who I kept in contact with. There's like some Boston comedians that were there. Dan Crone was like the same day I performed, so he was like a good pal on when we were filming and stuff like that. And then
after he never talked to you.
Well, I mean, he's still in Boston, so I don't see him a ton, but still friends on Facebook. That's real. I guess like who else was on my day? I mean, I ran into like people I looked up to, like KT Tatara and Sheng Wang and a few others, and so that was really cool for me. Actually, also there was like Taylor Tomlinson was my season, but wasn't, I don't think my day. But I mean, I don't know. She's somebody I look up to, obviously very successful and like cool. So
and our age.
That was exciting. Yeah, also like very young. Right? Yeah.
I think she's 25.
Yeah, she's like super young.
We're coming for the industry.
Absolute killer.
Says me who has no TV credits. I'll be at the Ontario.
For now.
Prof. Exactly.
For now.
Positivity. I like your style, Alex.
Now.
This is amazing. So as you're talking about kind of showcasing in LA, and this question could be for both of you, there's a lot of festivals that do a lot of showcasing in LA and try to, I feel like comedy festivals are kind of like taking off right now.
Have you done one before?
I have. You know what? I'm going to my first festival. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But I've actually never done a festival before, and I mean, I don't even know the process for doing festivals. But what do you think about festivals, Alan?
Me personally, I love doing music festivals a lot more than I like doing comedy festivals. Mainly because comedy festivals are super fun, and they're basically like summer camp. Like you go and you hang out with all these comedians, you meet comedians from all these different cities, and it's a great way to meet people from other cities. So that when you go, like if you're like, oh, I'm going to Florida, who do I know? Oh, that person I met from that festival is a Florida person. They know the scene there. They can hook me up in there, and that part's all great. But for the most part, especially at the level that we're at, you're paying a lot of money to go on this little like 4-day vacation to go do like 3 10-minute sets, usually at best. And then, so I did a bunch of them, and then I just got to the point where it's like, wait a minute. I'm being paid to do comedy. Why do I keep paying to go do comedy?
Yeah.
So now there's like 1 or 2 a year that I'll submit to, Big Sky being one of them. One that where it's curated and where they put you up in they give you lodging. Like then it's more worth it, obviously, because they're actually taking care of their comics. But I mean, I remember I did one in Austin, and I spent I think the whole experience cost me almost $1,000 to go to Austin for 3 days. Cause I treated myself to a hotel because I didn't want to sleep on floors and things like that. But I'm a much bigger fan now of going to music festivals, because comedy, it's hard to stand out at a comedy festival.
Yeah.
You're on a show with like 9 other people doing 7 minutes. Whereas when I go to a music festival, these are still comedy fans, but they're not so immersed in the world that they're coming to a comedy festival. They're just excited, and it's much easier for you to go in there and be memorable because they're watching all this music and they're like, oh, but there was only 3 comedians that we saw on that show. Who were they? How did they stand out?
Yeah.
And those are also like, I love music festivals and going to festivals. So those are like my people, and I know I can say whatever I want to them and they'll come on board with however weird I want to get. But I mean, either way, I mean, whatever you do, you just have to get something out of it for yourself, because you have to understand that even if you're going to pay money for these festivals, why are you doing it? More so than just so I can say I've been to this festival. What are you going to get out of it? Are you going to see a new city? Are you going to meet new people? There's a lot that you can get out of it, and they're really good for a while. But then I think you eventually just have to kind of wean yourself out. You've done a few, I imagine.
A few, yeah, but also similar. Like I have that same sentiment in the sense that like I've turned it into vacation either, where it's like, okay, well, at least I got to see a cool city. Like I went to a Seattle one, and it was cool because I could explore during the day, and I wouldn't like put that much like pressure on the shows, and it was fine. And then did a lot of touristy stuff, and then other times I've done things like where I'm going back to Boston, where I enjoy have done because of school, and so if I'm already there, it'd be great to do this festival. And then if not, I get to visit friends. So I kind of am doing this sort of hedging, well, I don't want to put so much pressure on this because it is going to be a commitment.
Yeah. And not a lot of people know, but yeah, a lot of festivals require that you just find a way there.
Unless you're a headliner, you're not. Nothing is. Most things are not covered for you.
Yeah,
you'll get a few. They're like, oh, we have discounts at the local barbecue joint if you want to go and stuff like that. But it's still going to cost you a lot of money. So it's just obviously the first few years in comedy, you are spending a lot of money. You're investing a lot into yourself, and you're not getting much return. And that's just the nature of really any business that you're going to go into. But you just have to find what is worth the amount of money that I'm paying for, and how can I pull a positive experience or better writing or more, connections out of it.
Yeah, it's crazy too. You mentioned something earlier that I want to get back to, but you talked about doing comedy at music festivals and stuff. A little bit of background for me, I used to be a musician, but some of my very first times on stage as a comic, I was just opening up for rock bands.
Yeah.
That was one of my first things. So I kind of got that in my head, if I could keep this audience's attention, who's just there to mosh or whatever, then that's a pretty good sign that you got something going for you. Sierra, have you ever performed maybe not necessarily open for a band, but maybe been on the same show as music acts?
Well, my experience with that is actually at school, I would try to get as much stage time just within the campus, which is possible because there's always performances. So I would do things for there was this percussion group that would do kind of the bucket strumming thing, and so I think I opened
the
for
Disney
them
janitors.
once.
You went to school with them? No way.
It's all the potheads. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Venice Beach relocated.
Yeah, looking for something to hit a stick on. But yeah, I think I opened for them, and then also would do things in talent show or variety show things where literally one time I went up after a wushu group, which is this sort of dance Asian sword thing. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like, I don't know, just like going up after like things that people are like, wow, 20 people all doing something in sync. That's amazing. And then like one person comes out and just like talks at what?
Yeah.
So it's
These
definitely
are my
weird,
experiences.
right? Yeah,
Can you relate?
Yay. Yeah, exactly.
How much do you guys credit those experiences for pushing you in comedy? Do you think like do those stand out from you, or do you find them as useful as maybe doing a random open mic in LA?
You know what it is like anytime you have to fight for an audience's attention is so good for you. And a lot of like, I mean, when I do music festivals, so I mean, I've had people in the front row doing whippets. I've watched people, I have literally watched people snort ketamine during my punchlines, like, and stuff like that, and just blast off into space for a few minutes. And it's the kind of thing where when you do get in front of an audience that's there because they want to see a comedy show, all of a sudden you're not fighting and you're like, oh, this is much easier now because like of all the time I've spent in bars at 1 a.m. just trying to be like, is anyone out there?
Yeah.
It's all good for anything that challenges you is good for you. Go on after people that are better. The thing is like headlining is so fun, but I'd way rather be at the bottom of a lineup, make me fight for my spot and prove to you why I'm there more so than just like, oh, this is the guy that you're here to see. Like that's great too. But I really love when I'm just on with just like people that are way ahead of me and I really have to prove to them why I'm there.
What's crazy is that not a lot of people know this, but I actually started doing comedy around the time that Comedy Pop-Up was like created, right? So I kind of got in with Comedy Pop-Up just as I was kind of starting to do stand-up. And one of the things I love about the producer of Comedy Pop-Up is he never gave me a spot. Like he never said, oh, here you go.
Good for you, Nick.
Nick made me earn everything, right? So at first, like, for the first year, it was pretty much nothing. But then he started to let me host. Cool. He's like, all right, here, you could host a couple gigs. And then came the day where he messaged me. He said, all right, you're getting your first Comedy Pop-Up spot. And I was so excited for it. He made me earn it. Like I worked for it. And then I looked at the lineup and I was going on after Kira Sultanovich and before Steve Hofstetter.
Oh,
and
man.
I was like, all right. Cool. And I went up there and I mean, I didn't crush, but like I held my own. And then after I got off, I was like, they feel like you feel so accomplished,
For sure. I mean, the good news about being in a spot like that is that the audience doesn't see you as, and if they don't know who you are, they just go, well, who's this person? Because he's on this lineup. I used to do the Meltdown all the time and I would always be the bottom of the lineup and I'd be on there with just a bunch of famous people. And they don't just go, oh, this person's not famous. They go, well, maybe they will be. So maybe I should just watch them. I'm going to watch them now, get them early.
Yeah. And that speaks to the reputation of a lot of these shows where it's like, well, you know that you're getting a quality product no matter when you come out. You know, that's why I love producers that are selective because if a producer would just let anybody on, then it's like kind of diminishes the quality of the show just a little bit, not to talk any smack on any of my fellow comics, fellow young comics, but hey, it's true. So, well, you brought up Nerd Melt. Sarah, you used to.
We were talking about this. I used to intern there when I first moved out here. Yeah. And we were sad.
I love that place. I mean, I'm not even a comic book person, and I just like what that place means to me is just like it's so important. Like when I recorded my first album there, and I was like, there's no other place I want to do it than right there because I had felt like I had been like primed by those people and those spots always meant so much to me that I got in there like just a few months before it was, it was done. And I'm so thankful that I did it, that I pulled the cord when I did.
Yeah. And what's crazy about those types of spots is like you hear them, like let's say you're listening to a podcast recording or something or a live show that's happening there and you have this imagination of what that spot is. And it's the same with like I compare it to like Lyric Hyperion in Silver Lake or like UCB Franklin where it's like you hear and you think of these massive places all this and then you go in there and it's like literally
so
Nerd Melt. Yeah, it was like the back room of a comic book store.
Yeah.
Like it really was.
I
had this moment where I was in Argentina. I was in Buenos Aires and I did a show down there and the producers were like, have you ever been to Meltdown? And I was like, yeah, it's across the street from my house. I'm there all the time. And they were like, what? And they were like where Harmontown is and the Meltdown. And I was like, yeah. They were like, what do you mean? Like it's across the street from your house. I was like, I can walk there in 2 minutes. Like I'm there. And their minds were blown. They were like, are you there every day? I was like, no. I mean, like I'm there a lot, but I mean, there's a lot of other places. And they were just like, these are people that live 8,000 miles away. Like there's huge, just so many countries in between. And they listen, they're like, we listen to that every single week. Like it was just one of those moments like, oh wow, that is a really special place.
Yeah. And we're so spoiled out here too.
Of course we are. I know. I try to not take it for granted, but like of course I walk to the Comedy Store in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like,
anytime there's a show in LA that's like has like a $15 ticket price, and it's like a comedy show, I'm like, you better be bringing out Rogan and Burr.
I know. Yeah,
I was like, because you could just see them. You could go down the store. What was the craziest thing that you ever saw happen at Nerd Melt? Or not like crazy as in insane, or like just something that got you excited?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I interned there, it was just like the showroom, so I would just like be selling chips. You know what I mean? It was very silly, but I mean, whenever Harmontown was recorded there, it was always packed. So it would just be like all the way to the back, people standing, like everyone's super engaged. Doug Loves Movies, similar thing. So it was just cool to see a lot of those. But I also just liked like the tiny shows. And the funny thing, I mean, we already talked that I produced Cameron Esposito's podcast. But before I started working for her, when she had Take My Wife, and I was writer's assistant for the second season. And like I was already a big fan, and I happened to see her like do a small show at Nerd Melt when I was interning there, and it was probably like, I don't even know if I've told her this, it was probably like 15 people in the audience. So that was really cool just to see like a pretty, you know, like a massive comedian just be like, oh yeah, and then I'm going to do this tiny little show. And I think she was like going out to do another show after, but it was just like hilarious that even happens. And obviously it happens with like a lot of comedians that are huge, but I think for me that was like exciting in one of the earlier times when I was there. And then just like, doing shows that are cool. Like I feel, I think I was doing a show with Aisling B, who's she's like killing it out here, but she's massive in the UK. And she had like, I think a stalker had sent her like a gift package or like a care package to the Nerd Melt address. So she was just like going through it like, oh, does anybody need this? Like, cause I don't, you know, she doesn't like, maybe she gets it all the time. I don't know. And we were all like tiny little comedians like, wow, like what? You got like face masks from like a random fan? And we were like, okay, I'll take it. You know, it was
Is that a jar of blood? I want that.
Yeah, we were like all so impressed. But so that was cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's a fun place. So
like the connects that you made there, like then was it definitely like a big networking opportunity for you working there?
Oh, good question.
Or?
I mean, I just wanted like I sometimes need an excuse to go to see comedy. Like I love to see it, but I think if I have the obligation of like, you have a shift, then like I will actually go, and like it's just fun to watch. And then sometimes if you do the open mic shift, like you could just get a guaranteed spot, or I would meet the producers of shows and be like, hey, can I just submit a clip or something if I was feeling particularly bold that day? So, you know, so I think like that was great. Do a guest spot,
I'll fix your website.
Yeah. I mean, offer some coding services. Why not? But yeah, no, I think like it was just a good excuse to like go see things. And then I would see friends too who were like signing up for the mic. So that was always fun.
It's also such an eclectic like style of show that goes in there. They were so willing to take chances on like, hey, look, I have this really absurd idea. Exactly. And they would be like, yeah, well, let's try it. And if it, you know, even if you didn't fill up the space, if you proved that it was an idea that could work, they kind of just helped you nurse it until it was like, you know, came to fruition more as to what you saw it as.
Yeah.
And that was really, because I mean, I did a lot of really weird shows there, but I also saw just a ton of just, you know, bizarre, you know, just versions of what stand-up could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting into eclectic, before we start wrapping things up, Crave Comedy. You're still doing it, right?
Yeah, we have. We're at a festival in 2 weeks.
So
called Camp Trip.
I first found out about it through my good friend Harry Morose.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
Posted a picture in a shiny rainbow unicorn outfit or something like that.
Probably. And
I was
sounds right.
What is this? Cool. What is this? But I've looked into it, and man, that's an awesome little mix of like you said, the kind of raver culture, like I don't know if you call it burner culture. But
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, combined with comedy, like it's just so awesome to see.
Yeah, it's just a mix. Like I've always loved throwing parties, and it was my way of throwing a cool party mixed in with comedy shows, and eventually the burner culture really infiltrated it and got it to this point of like, we don't want to see a comedy show and then a party. We want you to have an immersive event, and so they started really like pushing me to like create create themes and write stories. And eventually what Crave became and what it is now is I literally write a play around the stand-up comedians. So the comedians don't have to do anything. They just go in there and do whatever they want to do. But throughout the interstitials, like where I would normally host, I play a character and we tell a story that throughout that it does like have a beginning, middle, and end to it. So you're watching a complete package around the stand-up, and then afterwards we have all of, we DJs, fire spinners, all artists, all that kind of stuff. When we do it at festivals, we're just like, we usually do an hour, maybe an hour 20 at most, and it just gives people a break, like during the day when they're partied out or whatever, and they just need to lay under a tent and just chill, and it gives them something cool to do, and it's fun.
Is it one of those things that you see a lot of comics come out of their comfort zone to participate in it, or?
It's very specific, like who I can book on it and who I like think like will do well on it. Especially like it's one thing when I do it in LA, but when I do it in a festival setting, I have to like really I talk to people that I think would be good for it, but I let them know, like, just so you know, this is not going to be a walk in the park. You're a lot of times you're gonna feel like you're eating it. You're not necessarily, like you could be killing, but everyone there is just kind of whacked out of their gourd, and so you just kind of take the whole experience and just have as much fun as possible with it.
No comic has ever been hit with a dragon staff.
With the dragons, I mean, they should be, but not yet. I mean, it's just so funny because like when we were at Desert Hearts earlier this year, Erin Lampart was on stage and she was doing really well. And then later in the night, this guy dressed as a full-on Ewok just walks up. You couldn't see anything. And just goes, "I thought you were really great earlier up there." And she's like, "What?" And then he came to the show the next day in the exact same full costume. And it's just like, you can only get that in that type of environment where people are just naked, people are watching the show, people in full costumes. Like I said, like people just taking drugs in the middle of it. And it's just kind of like, whatever, sure, this is your space too, and do whatever you want. We're just here to entertain you.
Comedy and ketamine. That's my favorite.
Not a good combination. Really terrible combination.
But give it a try.
But separately, wow.
All right. So as we start to wind down the podcast, I have a couple questions for you guys that are going to be a little bit more quick fire, just little short answers or whatever. So the first one is, one of the best lessons that I was ever taught, like kind of starting out, was that to find a hobby, to find something to kind of invest your time in, like on the side. So what is something that you consider a hobby that kind of gets you away from the stress of the comedy life?
Oh, I mean, God, probably so nerdy, but the coding stuff.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, because it's just a different part of your brain.
It's not nerdy if it's what you're into,
Yeah,
it's probably like therapeutic, right?
Yeah, because it's like you can kind of turn off the like creative stuff. I mean, there's some creativity to it, but the stuff I like to do sometimes, it's just like, it's like checking boxes, So like having those little wins. Yeah. That's nice because it doesn't always happen in this field, right? Yeah. In comedy. Like,
there's also probably a very specific way you have to do it to get it right?
Sure, yeah. It's like, it's like you got to be pretty going down the list and be systematic about it. So maybe it's also that kind of like satisfying that part of your brain where you're like, I just want to check off some to-do list items, and that's all I want to do today.
I created a drop-down menu on my MySpace, and that's about it.
Well,
that's all I got with
then
coding.
We are one and the same.
That's part of that. What about you, Alex? What do you use to kind of unwind on the side?
A slackline. The festivals and stuff like that really get me out because it's literally times when I can just go, I can be whatever I want to be. I can put on a crazy outfit and just run around. I call it free range Alex, like uncaged, like let me out for free range Alex. And like my friends know, like sometimes it's like stay out of the way. I have unlimited energy. But the slacklining thing really, I did it today for like an hour and a half. It calms me. It lets my brain melt away and not really think. Like I can think when I'm up there, but usually I just put on headphones and try not to. And there's moments when 20 or 30 minutes will go by and I've kind of forgotten what I'm doing, and then I'll just kind of come back to reality, be like, oh yeah, I'm in a park surrounded by people just walking on this thin rope, But it is. I've been doing it for like a year and a half, and it has completely changed my focus and my just my overall confidence in my body and myself. Being able to accomplish a task that's difficult feels incredible, and the progression feels great. But then just because, with everything right now, everything is so ADD and it's so hard to pay attention. If I can just stare straight ahead at a knot on a tree for an hour, then I feel really good at the end of it.
Do you ever have people like come up to you? Like,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, sometimes because I don't always wear headphones, and sometimes they when they wear headphones, people are kind of like, whoa, he's in his zone. Maybe we shouldn't mess with him. When I don't, tons of people come up and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Can I try this thing? And I'm always happy to like, yeah, come on. But, I help little kids do it all the time and stuff like that. And it's such a unique sport that I really think that I love showing it to people because it's an individual thing and you can take it anywhere. I take it on the road with me. I set it up in 5 minutes and then I just have something to do for a while and it gets you outside,
Yeah.
That's important.
That's awesome. All right. On to my next question. If you could do coffee with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be?
Ooh, it'd have to be a dead person, right? I mean, just so you can drink more coffee? No. That is who would
I think that's a yearbook question.
It really is. It's hard to think about.
I've
like,
never had to answer this.
I know it's hard to think about. Like, who would I really want to meet? Like, I mean, because the thing is, like, obviously, I think about comedy culture and things. Like, I would love to meet George Carlin and just pick his brain about how he wrote an hour before he ever performed it and stuff like that. But in the end, I think I would. Like to go with someone. Maybe people like a music festival producer, like the people that literally create worlds for people. One of the founders of Burning Man, I would love to talk to about how they just change culture and things like that. People that are progressive thinkers and that are forward thinkers and that are going outside the box to create a different culture than we've ever seen before.
Yeah. Now, I know like EDC and all that's a little bit more mainstream, but somebody told me a story about Pascal, about how he was that guy on campus that just would always pass out flyers and like come to he was like that annoying guy on campus.
Yeah, he was back in the like late 80s, early 90s. He was throwing those underground warehouse raves, and those guys are like idols to me. Like, Pascal Rotella and Larry Harvey, who founded Burning Man, and Gary Rich, people that throw these that find ways to throw these massive events to literally allow everyone else to have fun. You do the work so everyone else can have fun.
Yeah, very noble. How about you?
Oh, God. I mean, I totally, okay, well, one side note off of that is that I do like talking to people who have that sort of like courage to like go out and ask for stuff. Speaking of which, okay, maybe this isn't the person because I have met her before, but it was before I read her book and now I'm sad I didn't talk to her about it, but Amanda Palmer, who's like, she was like Dresden Dolls and like she basically had this book she put out called like The Art of Asking. And I've actually been reading a lot of her writing recently, but she's just one of those like crazy artistic people who's just like done that her whole life. So maybe like asking more about that. I mean, sometimes reading someone's book is like getting coffee with them. So it's not necessarily like maybe I've already kind of done that, but I don't know. That's my answer today. But
on that note, cool. if young comics are listening to this, even if any comic, ask for stuff. If you think you're ready for stuff, ask for it. No one will ever be angry at you for it. They might say you're not ready yet or you're not this. But in the end, if you think you want something and you know that you can do it, by all means ask, because like that's how you get ahead.
Yeah. Learning that was like so crucial just because it's like I think there's such a shame of like, oh, well, then what if they say no? But it's like, so what, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, it's a constant struggle, but I think that's so important to know.
Once you hit send, sometimes you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah, like they're gonna hit me forever.
But then you just get over it, and then you send out 100 emails, and all of a sudden 3 come back with bookings, and you go, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
It's 3 more than would have happened before.
Yeah. The thing that launched me on this journey of like comedy and even with the studio and like with everything was I asked Ian Bagg to be his intern. Cool. And I was just a comedy fan. I used to just go to the club and I would go once a month. He used to have a show at the Bray Improv once a month and I would go every month. And I noticed on his podcast that his intern wasn't there. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to sneak in. So I asked him, and the next day I was at the Herald Examiner building in LA on the top floor. They sat me right in back of a mixer and they were like, all right, this is you. And I looked at them, I was like, I don't know how to use this. And they're like, this one controls the volume. You'll learn the rest later. Just continue.
Right.
And that kind of set me. All of a sudden, now I knew how to do podcasting, and that led to this and that. So you never know when you're just going to get that first opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And I still use SiriusXM as a credit, even though I played a very minor role on that show.
Hey, whatever, man.
yeah, no, I mean,
You may have heard him on Canada Laughs. Please welcome.
still hilarious.
Exactly. And I guess you guys kind of covered it, but let's ask for an additional piece. If this will be the last question, if you guys could give a piece of advice to a young comic star, so you guys kind of jumped ahead of me a little bit, but if you could give a secondary piece of advice for a young comic starting out, maybe someone who's starting out when they're 16, that's so awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cool. What would that piece of advice be?
You want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, besides the asking thing, which I think is key, I think like knowing that like you just gotta keep in the like figure out what you really love about it and then like keep that in sight. I don't know if that's really
Always,
I mean that's
yeah.
like with anything, so maybe whatever. But like I think from my personal experience, like, you know, I was kind of always on this like track and like I did, you know, school and like Harvard, and that always puts you on this sort of mindset of like achievement is key and like labels and this and that. And having that for a creative pursuit is like not helpful because you're just not going to actually check certain boxes along the way. Like that's just not how life is going to be. And like I think I had a hard time with that, especially out of college recently, because it's sort of like, you know, I have friends who are hitting those milestones and I couldn't help but compare. So I think like if you're pursuing anything creative or something not quite as traditional, especially comedy, like I've always been able to only find my way back when I like go and watch a lot of shows. Like, cause then I'll be like, oh my God, I remember. I'm like a fan first. And like, this is why I love it. And I don't need to have whatever thing that people want to check on their list of things to do for comedy because it might not happen and it has to be the long game and like all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that was a bit roundabout.
That's
but
a great, that's,
yeah,
no, that's a great
That was a great
answer.
answer.
Remember
staying
why
that
you
insight.
love it. Remember why what drove you to do it in the first place. Because I think we all get to a place where we are like, you could when you start complaining about your spots and about it's just what are we doing? Like, you know, there's somebody once told me he was just like, you can always look at people ahead of you, but just know that where you are, there's so many people behind you that are looking at you that want what you have right now. And that was really helpful to me.
Yeah.
But what really, my main thing is just like that I've learned really in the past few years, especially is just like learn how to do stand-up comedy, like watch the people that you love and learn what they do and kind of, you know, figure out like why you like what they do, but then learn a way to be unequivocally yourself without any fear. And just whatever you feel inside you, like be that person and just, you know, just try to convey everything that you want through it. And I mean, I just, at this point, I'm known for such weird things, like, you know, like pug yoga and like the AGT thing and stuff like that, where it's just kind of just like, you know, if I told people I was going to do that, most people would go, why? Or like, that's not, and it's just, there's something in it. It's just because I want to, and because no one else is going to do it. And in the end, the things that I've done that seem the craziest are the ones that have made me stand out the most. So really just find what you like about yourself and find a way to put that out into the world and just do it with a good attitude.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on the podcast. I hope you
you.
guys had a lot of fun.
Thank
This episode is dropping tomorrow, so if you guys have
Oh,
anything
wow.
to plug, go ahead and plug it now. We'll start with Sierra.
Anything to plug? I guess my Twitter and Instagram are both my name, SIERAKATOW, and I have like show dates on my website, which are mainly around LA, but you know, sometimes not. And then
Sometimes
yeah.
Boston.
And then I guess I'm trying to roll out my own podcast at some point. So I don't know if it won't be out tomorrow, but keep an eye out on my Instagram. I'll post about it. Yay.
That's awesome. How about you, Alex?
So yeah, definitely, you know, listen to my album on Spotify or iTunes, Hugs, Drugs, Pugs. I'll be on AGT on Wednesday as a little part of a prepackaged thing. But really, I have a bunch of road stuff coming up. If you go to my website, hoopercomedy.com, there's dates coming up in Central California, California, Northern California, Colorado, and then Camp Trip, which is the festival Crave is at, is in 2 weekends from now, and tickets are super cheap. They're like $70 for the whole weekend. It's like 2.5 hours outside of LA, and if you go to camptrip.org, it is just an amazing, very small celebration of humans. It's like 500 people. There's music, there's comedy, there's art, there's a swimming pool, there's all kinds of fun stuff to do. And so go to camptrip.org and check that out.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And if you guys want to follow me, you can find me at the Paul Antonio on all social media. And also October 17th, I'll be at the Brea Improv. If you want tickets to that, please hit me up on social media and follow me for future dates. This has been the Comedy Pop-Up Podcast, guys. Peace out.